Hey folks, I just want to welcome you to this new segment that I'm going to call Good Word Wednesday. And my goal here is just to give you a positive, powerful word from God to continue to get you through your week and to draw your mind back to His will and His way for your life. And so this Good Word Wednesday is going to come from 2 Corinthians chapter 12. It's a very familiar passage. And in the passage, Paul is talking about a lot of different things that have gone on, and he's talked about his relationship with God. He's defending himself. He's talked about a vision that God gave him. And then he says, because of the greatness of the revelation that God gave me, he gave me a thorn in my flesh. And then he says this, that he begged God 3 times to take the thorn away from him. But God's response was this. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, most gladly I will rather boast in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in needs, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong. The ESV translates it this way, and Paul says that for the sake of Christ, then, he is content in his weakness. I was playing ball with Haddon. She wanted to play in the driveway, and she wanted to play with a tennis racket and a ball. She wanted me to throw it to her, and she would hit it. And I would throw it to her, and I would throw it to her, and I would throw it to her. And as I would throw it to her, she would be standing there, and then she would swing as hard as she could. And every time she would swing, that racket would kind of go from open or to closed to open, and it would just kind of flatten out. And it made it impossible for her to hit the ball. And as she was swinging and missing, she finally came to me and said, give me the ball, let me show you. And so she gets back and she rears back and she looks at me, and I'm holding the racket now, and she throws it as hard as she can, and I lunge and I get the ball and I hit it. And she said, see, Dad, that's how you do it. That's how you throw the ball. So I got the ball back, and I said, all right, Haddon, kind of rotate your racket up, kind of rotate it up. Then I took the ball and I threw it at the very center of the racket, and she zinged the ball right past my head. She almost fell down laughing. She thought it was hilarious. She said, see, Dad, you threw it right then. All right, here's the thing. She thought that the whole time I was throwing it wrong and she was doing everything right, and she had to show me, and she threw the ball to me and it's like, that's how you do it. What she had no idea was that I hit the ball because of my ability. I had to lunge and way out to get the ball. And it had nothing to do with how good or bad she threw. And her hitting it or missing it had nothing to do with how good or bad I was throwing it. It had to do with the fact that she was messing up. Now here's what I want you to see, is that in our weakness, we can be made strong if we will give it to God. So we have a good God that we serve. His goodness is so big, and His love for us is so huge that He can swallow up our weakness when we'll rest in Him. His goodness can overcome any deficiencies, any weaknesses, any lacking that we have. And His goodness is huge. It is way bigger than our weakness. And yet we kind of wrestle and struggle and try to do everything on our own, and we try to cover up our weakness and make up for our faults and do all of this stuff to make ourselves better than what we are, when really God is saying, hey, look, my grace is sufficient for you. In me, you have all that you need, and I will make up for any weakness, any thorn, any faults. My goodness will swallow that up. And I want our first Good Word Wednesday to kind of draw us back to this. People will sometimes say, you need to let go and let God. You just give it up to God. And I like the words of the psalmist better when he says, be still and know that I am God. That really looks like cease striving, quit fighting, and trust God. I know in my life, particularly, I have struggled with guilt over sin, over dropping the ball. And that guilt has guided every decision I make. And if you're dealing with guilt, I want you to hear this. You need to stop fighting. And you need to trust the goodness of God. Stop fighting. Trust the goodness of God. Another thing that really drives me and really gets me off track in my relationship with God is this fear of failing what God has given me to do. Whether it's as a parent or a pastor or a friend or whatever, I'm always afraid that I'm not doing enough and that I need to try harder and do better. And here is what, if you're constantly driven and constantly scared that you're letting God down, here's what you need to do. You need to hear His words. My grace is sufficient for you. My grace. It's not what you've done. It's not what you're doing. It's my goodness towards you. It's good. It's sufficient. It's everything you need. And you need to trust God. You need to just hear that. My grace, my goodness. It's enough. It's enough. Stop worrying about the failing. Trust me. And when you can trust God, then you can give up your weakness. And what that looks like is just admitting, hey, look, God, this is where I fall short. This is what I can't do. This is what I'm worried about. This is what is really gripping my life. And here is my weakness. God, here's my weakness. I'm going to give it to you. And once you give up your weakness to God, then you can begin to rest in His strength. And for me, that sounds like this. I am worried about this. And then I remember, okay, God has this. God has this. I just need to be still. I need to realize that He is in control, that He has this. I need to stop fighting. I need to start trusting and realize that He will be exalted among the nations. Whatever He wants to happen is what's going to happen. Whatever He needs, whatever He wants, whatever He decides, that's what's going to happen. And I can rest in the fact that He will cause it to happen. And I can rest in His strength. I can stop fighting. I can trust God. I can own my weakness and say, God, here's where I'm weak. And then I can say, God, but I know that in that area, you can be strong in my life. And then I can wait on His timing. I can wait on His timing. And in waiting on His timing, I can wait in His presence. And maybe you are someone and you think, okay, well, I really wish I could wait in His presence. I really wish I could feel the presence of God more in my life. And can I just kind of make you think about this? All right, if you are running ahead of God and you're not being patient and waiting on God, if you're running ahead, or maybe because God isn't acting fast enough for you, you're running off from God, can I just tell you, you're not feeling His presence because you're running away and you're running ahead. And God says, you want to feel my presence more in your life, you need to learn to wait with me. You need to learn to wait with me. See, waiting on God's timing is also an opportunity to wait in His presence. You say, all that sounds good, but I just can't stop worrying. Well, can I just tell you this? Stop stressing and look for His blessing. Stop stressing about it and understand that God is very, very good. And His goodness is bigger than your weakness. And His strength is stronger than you could ever understand. And His will and His timing is perfect. And stop stressing. And wait in His presence. And look for His blessing. You see, just like with my game with Haddon with the tennis, everything in my life really looks like this. When I really fight my hardest, I miss the ball. When I can just stop and let God be God, and I can wait on His time and in His presence, then all of a sudden things connect. And it feels amazing. And I can rejoice, realizing it's not what I did, but what God did, and He let me be a part of it. God is a good, good God. And He has great and wonderful things for us. But we need to rest in His strength. We need to understand it's about His grace and His goodness to us, and not our wrestling and fighting and worrying. We need to trust Him, give Him our weakness, and rest in His strength. Thanks for joining me on this Good Word Wednesday. Hope this is a blessing to you, and I can't wait to see you Sunday morning.